Well, well, well. This is the Black Post. This evening, the message will be sent. No matter if you love it, no matter if you hate it, the message will be sent. Tonight, I would like to discuss what is Coinintelpro, explicitly referring to the fall of the Black Panther Party. This group was very vital in the Black struggle against white supremacy. This group was formed for the self-defense of foundational Black Americans. With that being said, we understand that the fall of this group came on all sides of the field, whether it be Black agents within inside the group, Asian agents that were supporting the group with guns and reporting back to the FBI, also known as the Federal Bureau of Investigators. Some people would like to say investigations, but you know they're investigators. Coinintelpro. What could that actually mean? Well, Coinintelpro is a series of covert and illegal projects conducted by the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation aimed at surveilling, infiltrating, discrediting, and disrupting American political organizations. One of their targets, the Black Panther Party. Now we understand that the Black Panther Party, originally the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, was a Black Power political organization founded by college students, Bobby Seale, Huey P. Newton, in October of 1966 in Oakland, California. This group was very instrumental in the fight of white supremacy, and this is why the FBI director at the time, J. Edgar Hoover, had to take this group down and label them as a Black extremist terrorist group in comparison to the Ku Klux Klan. This group was self-defense for African Americans. This group was for self-defense for foundational Black Americans. Instead of me tonight, ladies and gentlemen, of giving you a dialogue of what Coinintelpro is really about, I'd rather entertain you tonight with some video clips that I found very intriguing and very informative. And then as we go through this, I'll show you some actual documents that the FBI put together in the demise and the downfall of the Black Panther Party. Now, this organization was around about 17 to 18 years. Ladies and gentlemen, Coinintelpro.
The report identified Black identity extremists as a threat to law enforcement. Critics say the report is eerily similar to the FBI's 20th century counterintelligence program.
Coinintelpro was an FBI operation established in the 50s by J. Edgar Hoover to target African Americans who were fighting for justice and equality. He targeted Dr. King, he targeted Malcolm X, and over 80% of the targets of Coinintelpro were members of the Black Panther Party.
At the height of Coinintelpro, activists and community organizers were targeted. These include current Congressional Black Caucus members like John Lewis, Bobby Rush, Emmanuel Cleaver, and Barbara Lee.
The church committee in the mid-70s held hearings and determined that many of the actions and activities of Coinintelpro were really unconstitutional.
What you've described is a series of illegal actions intended squarely to deny First Amendment rights to some Americans. How shall we ensure that it never happen again?
One of the similarities that I see are that it's based on race. You know, Coinintelpro definitely targeted African Americans. Black identity extremists, which Attorney General Jeff Sessions has put out, targets African Americans. When it was brought to our attention, we immediately contacted the FBI director and had a very forthright meeting. I specifically asked him, how do they identify black identity extremists? Who are they? And there was no answer to that. We still don't know who's a black identity extremist.
A lot of activists around the country are very concerned that we're getting ready to repeat a very sad chapter of our history, where people who are rightfully protesting what they consider to be an injustice in their community, which is their relationship with police officers, are now being targeted and labeled as extremists and are going through periods of surveillance and harassment.
As a community worker, I attended many Black Panther Party functions. I was part of the breakfast program. We registered many people, the African American community and others, to vote. Well, the FBI during Coinintelpro would try to turn members of the Black Panther Party against each other. Agent provocateurs were placed within the party to try to sow dissent.
I was the coordinator of the Illinois chapter of the Black Panther Party. In December 4th, 1969, Fred Hampton and Mark Clark, two members of the Black Panther Party, were murdered. And they put an informant, William O'Neill, planted him inside the Panther Party.
We can mourn today, but if we understood Fred, that we are dedicated, that his life wasn't given in vain.
The national director of the FBI said that the Black Panther Party was the #1 threat to national security of this nation. And that created the condition for law enforcement agents all across this nation to go after Panther. That program that they did, in some sense, we ought to be thankful for, because that put in writing for everybody to see we're still in the eyes of so many, nothing but a bunch of work. Was I surprised? No. I fully expected it to happen. Now the question is, how do we deal with it?
People need to get to their members of Congress and get them a copy of this report and hold their members of Congress accountable. In this day and time, they could really stop and halt the progressive movements that are taking place in the country. And I think with Black Lives Matter, with the Dreamers, with all of our millennials and what they're doing, they deserve to be out there and to protest and to engage in petitioning their government to right the wrongs of the past. Those of us who've been around, who saw Coinintelpro, really know the risks and the dangers, and so I hope that people really believe us that this happened, because this is Coinintelpro 2.0.
Well, family, let's get into this, because what I think is important is that we understand that Coinintelpro is a series of covert and illegal projects conducted by the United States Federal Bureau of Investigators and Investigations aimed at surveilling, infiltrating, and discrediting the Black Panther Party. Now, we also understand that supposedly they were targeting the KKK, but these are actual documents. And have you heard in that news report that they had sleeper agents that blended in with foundational Black Americans? Because we understand that Huey Newton was actually non-FBA, but was for FBA and the justice of Black people in this country, nonetheless. but they put sleeper agents that will go along with the program, so to speak, in order to be an informant to the FBI to learn very sensitive and secret information. Now, later on in this broadcast, we're going to find out that there was a non-Black person that was in a very high position in the Black Panther Party who also armed them with guns. That also was an FBI informant. Have you noticed, family, that every single time that we unify and we fight, they label us as extremists, as terrorists? When have Black people ever been terrorists? We live in an oppressed country, and every time we unify to fight back the system, which marginalize us, which kills us, which brutalize us, they send spies. They make up lies. They tell fables and fairy tales and stories that are just essentially white lies. And the most prominent figures in history, unfortunately, are not white supremacists. In the downfall of a revolt, a revolution, or a rebellion, it's always been a Black face, because we understand not all skin folk are your kinfolk. And because somebody looks like you doesn't mean that they're for you. That's what we need to understand. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't bank Black or shop Black, but you should be very, very careful in what you say to people and how you go along with people, because you don't know if they're an agent. Now, this document that you have in front of you, family, is Counterintelligence Program Black Nationalist Hate Groups. That is the label. I'm going to read this the best way I can. There's a very doctorate document here that's been through the years. It's been through some torn and tissues in here, but I'll try to piece it together the best way I can. Nationalist activity and interest in counterintelligence to coordinate this program. This agent will be responsible for the periodic progress letters being requested, but each agent working this type of case should participate in the formulation of counterintelligence operations. For maximum effectiveness of the counterintelligence program and to prevent wasted effort, long-range goals are being set. 1, prevent the coalition of militant Black nationalist group. In unity, there is strength. Family, are you reading this? In unity, there is strength. Shouldn't that be telling us something in this day and age right now? I won't get into the whole voting, but shouldn't that ring home to us? If the FBI knows that. Now, I know we know that, but why aren't we doing it? In unity, there is strength, a truism that is no less valid for all its triteness. An effective coalition of Black nationalist groups might be the first step toward a real Maui in America, the beginning of a true Black revolution. They didn't say terrorist acts. They didn't say rebellion. They didn't say uprising. They said a revolution, because we understand a revolution changes the very fabric of countries. It changes the government. It changes the infrastructure. It changes the minds, the hopes and dreams of the people, not only part of the revolution, but who are either the inflictors or the victims of the revolution. Now, you tell me, as Black people live in an oppressed system, who would have been the victims? 2, prevent the rise of a messiah. Have you noticed any sort of messiah or figurehead that the Black community has ever had? What has happened to that person? They have somehow committed suicide, got assassinated, poisoned, or even came up missing. Prevent the rise of a Messiah who could unify and electrify the militant Black nationalist movement. Malcolm X might have been such a Messiah. This is in the document. Malcolm X might have been such a Messiah. He is the martyr of the movement today. Martin Luther King, Stokely Carmichael, and Elijah Muhammad all aspire to this position. Elijah Muhammad is less of a threat because of his age. King could be a very real contender for this position should he abandon, listen to this, family, listen to this, should he abandon his supposed obedience to white liberal doctrines, aka, in parentheses, in this document, non-violence, and embrace Black nationalism. Who else was for Black nationalism? Marcus Garvey. Who else was for Black nationalism? Malcolm X. When we speak about religion, that is what the FBI is referring to of Christianity, because Christianity that dates back to the early 1400s in Portugal is a form of white liberal doctrines that teaches Black people to be submissive to their slave masters, to be submissive to police brutality, to be nonviolent when someone's being violent to you. But we are the terrorists. We are the extremists. We are the savages. We are the monkeys. We are the third of a human. This is who we are, right? Carmichael has the necessary charisma to be a real threat in this way. Are you noticing that all of our leaders from the 60s are no longer with us? Malcolm X assassinated, Martin Luther King assassinated. They either killed them or took away their voice, because we understand that the demise of the Black Panther Party was first sending messaging through journals and newspaper to start dissension in the ranks of the Black Panther Party, because the Black Panther Party was going from city to city to city nationwide, from Oakland, California being the headquarters. Now, when that didn't work, the FBI had to come on the scene because they didn't want a what? A Black revolution. And even though Martin Luther King was nonviolent, he is a part of this document as a threat. They said, prevent the rise of a Messiah. How do you prevent the rise of a Messiah? You kill them. You discredit them. You take away their voice. This is how you do this, family. They did it to all of our Black prominent leaders. 3, prevent violence on the part of Black nationalist groups. This is of primary importance and is, of course, a goal of our investigative activity. It should also be a goal of the counterintelligence program, aka Coinintelpro. Through troublemakers and neutralize them, through counterintelligence, it should be possible to pinpoint potential troublemakers and neutralize them before they exercise their potential for violence. Anyone ever heard of the movie with Tom Cruise, Minority Report, where they were locking up people prior to them committing a crime by the way of some precognitive, futuristic, sentient beings that was given information through their mind? They can see the future. Let me read that last part again before you get lost, family, because this is very important that you know this, through counterintelligence, it should be possible to pinpoint potential troublemakers and neutralize them before they exercise their potential for violence. Now, last time I checked, family, neutralize means kill. Neutralize means lock them up. Before, listen to that. I'm going to lock you up because I believe you're going to commit a crime. I'm going to kill you before I think you're going to harm someone. Now, unfortunately, these tactics are still being practiced today with your town, local, state, and also federal police, the violence towards Black people in this country. Now I'm waiting for the immigrants that comes from African descended countries like the Caribbean, Bahamas, and also Africa to understand that you're no different than us. And I'm not here to convince you. I would like to tell you that when you're getting pulled over or when you're encountering a police officer, he is not looking at you as a Nigerian, a Kenyan, a Rwandan, a Guyanese person, a Senegalese person, a person that is from Africa, and not that you are a Black American. They're looking at you as a Black person because, quite frankly, we're descendants either from this country or the continent of Africans. That is how you're viewed. So either you get on code or you're a coon and you will be dealt with when they get to you. 4, prevent militant Black nationalist groups and leaders from gaining respectability. See, this is that dissension and lies that they were trying to put in different chapters of the Black Panther Party by trying to war inner party fighting, inner party confusion with the Black Panther Party. Prevent militant Black nationalist groups and leaders from gaining respectability by discrediting them to 3 separate segments of the community. The goal of this discrediting Black nationalists must be handled tactically in 3 ways. You must discredit the groups and individuals. First, the responsibility to the Negro community. Second, they must be discredited to the white community. See, family, they don't just separate and war against you against the white community. They also discredit you and war you against your own community. This is what they do. First, they war you against your own within the same group, in the same party, in the same entourage, in the same organization. Then they discredit you in your own community. And then they discredit you in the white community. This is what they have done. Anytime we unify, they figure out a way, either by hook or crook, or a Sambo, a traitor, a turncoat, a coon, to come in and be an agent, to be a shield and inform them of what we're doing, when we're doing it, how we're doing it, and why we're doing it, so they can neutralize the nonviolent threat that they potentially may believe leads to violence. Here's another document of Coinintelpro. As you can tell from the top, family, Black nationalist hate groups. Can anyone name for me a Black nationalist hate group? Anybody? Anyone out there? Then they have the Black Panther Party in parentheses, 12/2/68, December 2nd, 68. Now, for the information of receipt officers, a serious struggle is taking place between the Black Panther Party and the U.S. organization. The struggle has reached each proportions that it is taking on the shore of gang warfare with attendant threat of murder and reprisals. In order to fully capitalize upon the Black Panther Party and U.S. differences, as well as to exploit all avenues of creating further dissension in the ranks of the Black Panther Party, receipt officers are instructed to submit imaginative and hard-hitting counterintelligence measures aimed at crippling the Black Panther Party. Family, you cannot make this up. You cannot be wrong in the way that you look at this. This is sabotage. This is manipulation. This is spies. These are agents. I'm going to read that one more time, family. In order to fully capitalize upon the Black Panther Party and U.S. differences, as well as to exploit all avenues of creating further dissension in the ranks of the Black Panther Party, recipients officers or receipts officers are instructed to submit imaginative, make it up, tell a story, fable, a lie, tell a little white lie, tell a big white lie, make up a story, imaginative, use your imagination, come up with anything you can out of your ass, be creative, imaginative, and hard-hitting counterintelligence aimed at crippling the Black Panther Party. Commencing December 2nd, 1968, and every two-year period thereafter, each office is instructed to submit a letter under this caption containing counterintelligence measures aimed against the Black Panther Party. The bi-weekly letter shall also contain accomplishments obtained during the previous 2 weeks period under the caption program. Family, they want to make sure they accomplish something in this Coinintelpro program that's at the Black nationalist hate groups, aka the Black Panther Party. You and I know that the Black Panther Party was a self-defense force that started in Oakland, California, to protect our people from police brutality. But they will have you to believe that our brothers and sisters was out there just killing people. All intelligence actions must be approved at the Bureau prior to taking steps to implement them. Stamped November 25th, 1968. Every 2 weeks, send us a letter of your accomplishments obtaining during the previous weeks. And let's make sure we get this all out to the offices. Boston, Chicago, Cleveland, Denver, Indianapolis, Los Angeles, Newark, New York, Omaha, Sacramento, San Diego, San Francisco, and Seattle. Every major hub where there was a Black Panther Party charter. I applaud my sisters because they were part of the fight as well. Now today, I hear a lot of political figures, mainly from the Democratic side, some on the Republican side, speak about how Black men don't take up for Black women. Oh, they may take up for one, but they won't take up in the majority. They won't take up in a unified front. Lies. Family, you know, and I know, every race have their own problems. And as you can tell, from the day we step foot on this continent that we so-called called America or North America or these United States of white supremacy, that we have been treated like criminals after slavery. I want you guys to read the Willie Lynch letter or go and watch one of my latest videos about the Willie Lynch letter, and you will know why they have designed a system and a method to rip kids away from their parents and to emasculate the men, and how Black men are today are buck broken and homosexual because the methods and system they in place during slavery. Now, I'm not saying you being homosexual is wrong. I'm not even getting into that. I'm just telling you the hardcore facts of why our people are still traumatized and we're still being affected. What happened back in 1526 when the first 100 enslaved Africans were brought here. I know a lot of you are familiar with 1619, but 93 years prior to that, 1526, between South Carolina and Georgia, 100 enslaved Africans were born on this continent. So that is the true year that enslaved Africans were brought to this land. But we won't go too deep into that. But I would like to highlight my sisters that they have always had their men back. And even though this day political parties are trying to rip, manipulate, trick, fool our Black women to separate themselves from the Black male, all for a goddamn vote. So another white supremacist can take the helm of being the president of these United States of white supremacy. Nobody wants to hear the truth, family. We can talk about Donald Trump, about the Central Park Five and his rental properties and how he discriminated upon Black people. We can talk about Joe Biden is not wanting his kids to ride the bus with Black people, or the 1986 anti-drug law that targeted Black people, or the 1994 crime bill, or some of his recent rants about you're not Black if you don't vote for me. What else does these white supremacists in office have to do to convince Black people they are white supremacists and that you should bow down to your master and do whatever they tell you to do? Not only do they say it to your face, they get those political shields in front of them and they tell us too. Then they're trying to rip our strong Black women away from us. They tell them Me Too. They tell them this is a feminist movement. They tell them that this is about LGBTQ. Everything except Black people being unified. Because even the FBI knew back in the 60s that in unity, there is strength. I want you guys to go back and look at my video about the Red Summer and the Dade Massacre, how unity helped those Black Seminoles fight against those white supremacists. How during the Red Summer that the World War I Black vets came to the neighborhoods and was protecting people and property, that the white supremacists was burning down their homes and burning down their businesses. See, fam, you don't understand. The Black Panther Party was about self-defense, not about terrorism, not about hate. They got tired of our Black men and women being locked up for no reason and being killed by the police. Headlines: Black Panther Party members freed after being cleared of charges. 13 Panthers here found not guilty on all 12 counts. Jurors in bomb conspiracy case reached a verdict with unexpected speed. Courtroom in uproar. You know, the courtroom was white people. They was up in an uproar. 2 down in Algeria are among those cleared, 4 guilty in trial of Harlem 5. They accuse our brothers of a bomb conspiracy. This is how they do. But as I said before, family, there have always been some sort of agent in the Black Panther Party to plant dissension and separation and turn Black Panther parties against each other, members against each other. But this one really takes the cake on my account, because this Japanese American, this Japanese immigrant that lived most of his life in the Black community in California, the Black Panther Party allowed him, because he was also in a fight and struggle of rights for Asian Americans, because he was Japanese. But he also was an FBI informant that was given the FBI information about the Black Panther Party, all the while arming and teaching the Black Panther Party how to shoot, carry, and handle a weapon.
We want an immediate end to police brutality and murder of black people.
Well, perhaps more than anything else, the Black Panthers stood for the right of black people to defend themselves against white violence, even if it meant carrying weapons and using them in self-defense. But it also brought violent conflict with police. And by 1969, at least 28 Panthers had been killed in shootouts with police. Not many people know that the Panthers got some of their first weapons from a man named Richard Aoki. And nobody knew that Aoki was an informant for the FBI. A former FBI agent had heard that I was doing research, and he contacted me. His name was Bernie Threadgill. But he says, hey, I know that guy. And he said, Aoki was my informant. I developed him.
Oh yeah, he was a character. He said, I don't have any interest in communism. And I said, well, why don't you just go to some of the meetings and tell me who's there and what they talked about. So one thing led to another, and he became a real good informant.
Aoki was a prominent activist in the San Francisco Bay Area during the 60s. He'd also had a connection with the Black Panthers. Aoki was head of the Berkeley chapter of the Panthers and later became a field marshal in the Panthers. And it was known that he had given the Black Panthers guns. When he was in the Army, he became a firearms expert. So I was really curious to know about this other side of his life. I'm wondering if you remember a guy named Bernie Threadgill?
Bernie Threadgill?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
What I was told in my research that during this period of time you actually worked for the FBI.
They tell you that?
Bernie told me that.
He did?
He did.
Oh, that's interesting.
Someone like Aoki is perfect to be in a Black Panther Party, because I understand he's Japanese. Hey, nobody's going to guess. He's in the Black Panther Party. Nobody's going to guess that he might be an informant.
Aoki was a student at Merritt College, and that's where he met Huey Newton and Bobby Seale, who would go on to found the Black Panther Party. The Panthers at that time were very concerned about police brutality in Oakland. They wanted to end police brutality. And they had an idea that one way to do that would be community patrols of the police. And in these community patrols, members of the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, if they saw police interacting with citizens,
there would be a Black Panther present with a camera and also an unloaded shotgun. The goal of that was to be an eyewitness to prevent any possibility of police brutality.
But they needed guns in order to do these patrols. So they went to Richard Aoki. We went to a third world brother we knew, a Japanese radical cat. He had guns. We told him that we wanted those guns to begin to institutionalize and let black people know that we have to defend ourselves as Malcolm X said we must. And Aoki did. He provided not only weapons, but weapons training. Threadgill had given me a detailed account of how he recruited Aoki as an informant, but I wanted to know more. In reviewing the records, there was a list of informants. Most of their names were blacked out, but for some reason, Richard Aoki's name had not been blacked out, and he was listed in the report as informant T2. Why was he arming the Panthers, and was the FBI involved in it? Under J. Edgar Hoover, the FBI had a secret operation called Coinintelpro, an acronym for Counterintelligence Program.
Hoover was very anxious to go after the Black Panther Party. The goal of the FBI was to, first of all, neutralize them.
Techniques ranged from sending false letters or planting negative news stories to trying to foment violence between the Panthers and other groups. The FBI also used informants as part of its COINTELPRO operation.
2 uniforms neatly pressed in his apartment, and one uniform was the Black Panther uniform. The other uniform that he had laid out and neatly pressed was his Army uniform.
One of the things I learned in my research is that Richard had actually worked for the FBI.
Oh, how was that?
Well, he never mentioned this to you?
No.
Am I wrong?
I think you are.
Yeah. So, would you say it's untrue that you ever worked with the FBI or got paid by the FBI?
I would say it.
Yeah. And I'm trying to understand the complexities about it, and I think
it is complex.
I believe it is, and
layer upon layer.
Well, family, Aoki said supposedly he did not work for the FBI, but when he was asked originally, when you first saw the first clipping, that in the beginning of that clip, he laughed that someone told this reporter that he worked for the FBI. He said he did. Then he laughed. And then at the end, he said that it's very complex. Now, what's complex if you didn't work for the FBI? Then you respond layer upon layer. See, family, there's a lot of baiting and switching, a lot of manipulation, a lot of benign neglect that Aoki was a FBI informant. He was an FBI agent that was sent out not only to start dissension among the Black Panther Party, but to dismantle it by being an informant. Now, the part about him arming with the weapons, I don't know if that was out of his own good gracious, because he was also fighting protests during that time as well. You can look into Richard M. Aoki, a Japanese American. But family, COINTELPRO, the counterintelligence program that was mainly sought out to destroy every chapter, every piece and element of the Black Panther Party, headed by no other than the director of the FBI at the time, J. Edgar Hoover. And as I told you before, family, In unity, there's strength. And that is why they don't want us to be unified. See, you have to understand that when you go back and look at my video about Willie Lynch, how he separated the Black family, how he warred the males against themselves, and how he separated the kids when they came of age, and also had the mother, the woman, as leader of the family, so she can teach the kids how to be good slaves. See, this is by design, and some people are stupid. I don't even know the word for it, family. They're in the midst of fog that these white supremacists, these oppressors, do not plan these things out. They do. They do. This is a system that has been constructed for us to fail. And every time we unify, every time we get our shit together, they come and they drop bombs. Tulsa, Oklahoma, 1921. Anytime we begin to so-called pull ourselves up from our bootstraps, they take away our land. The Homestead Act, the Highway Act, redlining, gentrification, police brutality, police murder, discrimination in the workplace, racism in everyday interactions with non-Black Americans. Now that you are informed, do you believe that we should be unified, or we should just take care of ourselves and go back to the corners and our homes where we are? If the FBI knows that in unity there is strength, if the slave masters knew that there's strength in unity, the question is, why don't you know? This is the Black Post. This evening, the message was sent. No matter if you loved it, no matter if you hated, the message was delivered. Have a good night.